Good evening.
Good evening.
And I got the message that we want to make this a little brief here because you got a lot on the agenda there. So, and I didn't show up here last month, so I do have January statistics to report to you guys, just so that we don't miss out on those. I'll start off with collisions. We had reported 16 traffic collisions in the area of Agua, Dulce, of which 6 of them were injurious accidents. 3 of those were actually determined to be DUI related, and of those 3, 2 of those were injury reported accidents. There was 1 fatal traffic collision that we investigated, which doesn't really relate to the public highway. It was in the off-highway vehicle area, which is at Roar Flats, and that was back on January 10th of this year. And basically it was somebody that was off-roading. Preliminary reports actually indicate that it was DUI related. However, a more detailed and investigation of the vehicle and its condition and the services and everything else are being conducted by our multidisciplinary accident investigation team down in downtown area. So we'll have final results on that over in a couple of months. In any case, that was 1 fatal injury for passenger in that vehicle. And in that month, we had 5 DUI arrests. We had another misdemeanor arrest for a reckless driver where a motorcycle was doing about 130 to 140 miles per hour on the freeway. We were going to catch up to him. Technically, we weren't behind him with our lights for most of that, so it wasn't a pursuit. But nonetheless, he went to jail. And then we did, as a matter of fact, have 1 pursuit, which was involving a stolen vehicle that was back on the 6th of January. That was initiated on the freeway. Started somewhere, I believe, around Soledad. They initiated an enforcement stop at Via Princesa, and this pursuit was engaged from that point on until the service streets in San Fernando, where the suspect vehicle collided into another vehicle, causing injury to that party, and the person fleeing on foot. Actually, 4 occupants of the vehicle fleeing on foot. Thanks to our allied agencies, LAPD and San Fernando PD, we were able to capture all 4 of them, and that case is now being tried in criminal court. And then there was also another stolen vehicle in that same month too. That one did actually surrender to our officers, or the driver of that vehicle did surrender to our officers on the 14th as well, right around Vasquez Rocks. And that was January. Then I have February. Traffic collisions. We had 33 reported traffic collisions, of which 12 of them were caused injury to the parties involved. And 4 of the 33 were determined to be DUI related. And there was only, I think, 1 of those that was injury causing. In that same month, in February, we had 8 DUI arrests and a couple of misdemeanor arrests, 1 for a warrant and another one for somebody not using their ignition interlock device. Other than that, I don't really have any citation statistics for you at this time, but our enforcement efforts are the same as always, as I'd like to say. And any questions or concerns, certainly I'll go ahead and address them right now. If not, you're welcome to call us at our office at any time. Any questions? Yes.
You mentioned the ignition device. How do you fail to use that? Will the car will not start if you don't use it?
Well, the issue is that it probably wasn't in the car. It's not installed in the car when it's required. And that'll come up on the person's DMV report where it says this person was arrested previously for a DUI offense, and part of their probation terms is to have 1 of those devices installed in the vehicle. If they're not using the vehicle with that device, then they're a violation.
Okay. I was just thinking, how can you get around it? It says that someone's clever enough to get around it. They probably are.
Well, there are some people that do have those in their cars. There are means of getting around it, and we're not disclosing it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Go ahead.
And just to let you know, there are still speeders alive and well on the freeway. As a side, I
been on special assignment, escorting German police officers for the last little over a month that are interning with the department's 5th year I've done this time of year, and taking them downtown, and it amazes me that people will pass me on a freeway doing about 85, come up on my tail, switch lanes to into the carpool lane, come out of the carpool lane, pass cars on the right, and come back into the carpool lane, and then don't understand why they get pulled over. We'll see them in court. And that happened 3 times, by the way. 2 on one day and 1 on another, going downtown. And one of them was a local, but I'm not going to say anything.
Wow.
All right. Now back to good news. Well, we had 4 reports last month for the month of February, and there were 2 burglaries, 1 grand theft vehicle, and 1 petty theft. So we're still down, although the burglaries bother me because 1 was a residence and 1 was a extra structure, but we're still having issues with that. And 2 of them were on the same street, so which is a paved street in town. So, and it's like, that bothers me, but we're still working on it.
Same type of items were stolen?
Miscellaneous tools, usually it's construction type equipment, because apparently these guys know people out here have generators and ladders and big power tools, and that's what seems to be getting taken a lot. And those are probably taken somewhere else and sold. Right, we don't find them around. And then on the other good news is back in June of 2013, I arrested an individual from one of our local transient type trailer parks, whose name shall remain nameless, but they're about that way. And he had committed a rape. And he was 74, she was 29. Well, it finally went to trial, and I'm happy to say he got convicted on 9 of 10 counts. Because I spent a lot of time earlier this year testifying and going to the trial and going through it. So he will probably go away for at least 130 years. So. And the only count they didn't find him on was obstruction of a police officer, because one of the other police officers there, he yelled something to him, and the DA decided to charge him for that, which is a minor misdemeanor for yelling. And the jury was like, yeah, so he yelled. So it's okay. They unanimously found him guilty on the other one, so the sentencing is coming up, and I will be there to see him go away. So, and this gentleman, by the way, has lived here a number of years. People have probably seen him around town. He, I can tell you, he served 33 and a half years for the murder of an ex-girlfriend and boyfriend in Illinois. Got out, committed a sex offense, went back to jail, committed another one, went back to jail, and they paroled him out to California. And so he was living in a trailer back here for a number of years, and I had registered him every year for the last 6 years. So I was well aware of him and what he did. And it was just interesting. So when I got the call, I was like, I'll be happy to take him. So he's got a new home now. And at least he's off the street, he won't be coming back. So
That's good.
that's a good thing.
Good.
So, other than that, any questions?
Yeah.
Sir?
Were the burglaries similar to the ones on Peterson from last month, that you were talking about?
I think one of them was, and the other one was not. And the theft, I understand, was from an open vehicle, which, I'll cover that real quick too. The difference between burglary and a theft, if your car is locked and they break in, same thing with, well, your house is there, but your vehicle, that's a burglary. You don't lock your doors and somebody opens it up and takes the laptop, that's a theft. Read your insurance policies. Some of them will not cover you not locking your doors. I know it's a rural area, but if they look at the police report that says the person reported doors not locked, we don't find damage, then some of the insurance will deny the claim. So if it's parked out in an area where it's dark and you leave valuables on the front seat, there are some enterprising individuals here who I've been tracking that have been known to go through cars at night, and they just walk down and try doors. And they'll come through open gates, they'll go up driveways. A couple of cases, they were behind the house, or the cars were behind the house. And in one case, they took a vehicle in Acton, from behind his driveway, he leaves the keys, used to, in the tray. Walked in, started the truck up, and drove out with it. Drove it down because it didn't have any gas in it until it ran out of gas, and then took the money and the DVDs and whatever, and just left it by the side of the road. So there are people who do that. So we want to catch them all.
Good.
All right.
Thank you much, appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I think you said in January there was someone reported a burglary on Penman Road.
Yeah.
Okay, was that again, you know, the regular stuff, you know?
As far as I know, that one was the same when I talked to the deputies that handled it.
It wasn't on Penman because I talked to my neighbors and, you know.
That's where the address came up. So
Okay, all right,
yeah, I can only go by what's on the report because I didn't take that one.
okay.
So, and then they do a printout and it comes whatever the line of the address is that prints, and I can see it.
So, okay.
But I'll check into it, and if you're here next meeting, I'll see if I can find an answer for you.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Scott, appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Have a great, stay out of the rain.
Probably a low report for today. A quick report for me, thank you again. Structure fire for February, no structure fires, 1 mobile property fire, 19 emergency medical calls, 4 good intent calls, 5 false alarm calls, for a total response from the fire department for 29 runs in February. I didn't see any major incidents or outstanding activity to report back to you on. But I was gone for a few days, so if I missed something, please let me know. As always, if you have any questions or concerns locally, this is the opportunity for you to tell me, because I go right back to the assistant chief's office, and we're happy to deal with whatever questions, concerns, inquiries that you have. And for those, sometimes I think, what's a good intent call? Anybody know what a good intent call is? I see smoke, and we go, and it's a barbecue. That was a good intent, right? Somebody's burning their steak, so that's an example of a good intent. And there's not much more for us. We are starting our live fire training, again, May and June, except it won't be at Wayside this year, because we've pretty much burned everything at Wayside that could be burned. So we're going out to the east end towards Pomona, and all of our firefighters will be doing some live fire training out there, which I think kind of gives us a nice break. It takes a lot of notification, and people are on edge that time of year. They're starting to begin to think about the warm weather and the winds and the upcoming fire season, so to speak. And it'll be nice not to have to kind of feel the concerns and the calls, people calling from the freeway. I see smoke, because they're going by Wayside and, you know, that type of thing. So that's a good intent call, right? See smoke, fire, that's a good intent call. Some other priorities for the assistant chief this year include not a fun subject to bring up, but an active shooter drill with our local sheriff's department over at COC. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but it's changing the nature of those active shooter incidents. It's changing for firefighters, and they don't like to do what those guys do. They want to, you know, fight the fire, but the reality is, in a live scenario, they're going to go in after a first run through that law enforcement makes, and they're going to have to be escorted in, still kind of not a hot zone, but a warm zone, and be escorted by law enforcement to take those critical patients. So our firefighters are learning to put their armor on and step into that situation. And our chiefs and captains with the various sheriff stations are starting to really drill with that together, so that we're prepared to really respond as one. And that's challenging, because there's different operating styles and different key goals. Their goal is to get the guy. Our goal is to go get the patients, but we don't want our guys to go down while we're going to get those that are injured. So, you know, it's that's the call of duty, and everybody knows that. They've always known that. Our firefighters know it's the call of duty when they run into a burning building, but they're starting to get used to the potential for the call of duty in some of these drills. So that's one of the several priorities that the assistant chief has for this year. And I think that's all I have for tonight, unless there's any questions or any concerns. Great.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Our meeting programs, and then already on the 5th we had American Pride Laser Spectacular, which was a children's program. And then coming up, we have our first Star Party of the season, and that will be on Wednesday, March 25th at 7:30 p.m. That's our Friends of the Library sponsored program. So the Star Parties, they'll have the big telescope out, and they'll have Jeremy Emmerant there doing lecture and guided star watching. And then this month, we also started an 8-week program for kids ages kindergarten to 6th grade for modern Middle Eastern dancing. We had the first session today, and it's going to be Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Through April 29th. And then big news on the library front, our two newest libraries, Stevenson Ranch and Castaic, are both having their grand openings this Saturday. Castaic will be at 10 a.m. and Stevenson Ranch will be at 11 a.m. So there'll be big grand opening celebrations and festivities. They're both beautiful libraries. Castaic was a remodeled and it doubled in size, and it's just spectacular. It's about 1,000 square feet bigger than Acton. And then the Stevenson Ranch one is about the same square footage as ours. So come check it out. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And the Stevenson Ranch Library is located in the Valencia Marketplace in leased space. So we're boosting the economy there, hopefully, for all the businesses that are surrounding the library, and they're very excited to have it open. So
Great.
if you're in the neighborhood, come on by. I have just a few things. I think maybe you might have heard, or I might have talked about it last month, but the board introduced a motion to require cat owners in unincorporated county areas to spay and neuter their pets. The supervisors asked Animal Care and Control and County Council to prepare a draft ordinance requiring cat owners to do that. That'll come back to the board and there'll be more discussion about it. It has pros and cons for people, but cats are a big issue in the county. So.
They don't last too long now.
You have your own program. That's okay. Catching it out of the fields.
Maybe I should talk to the supervisor about a different Okay, good. Another thing I wanted to bring to your attention was a program that the fire department is starting to implement, and it's, I'm going to read from an email I have. It's about the installation of a public safety broadband network communication system for first responders. And these are essentially going to be monopoles that are going to be at fire stations. I think you've probably all heard at various times through emergencies that the various first responders have trouble communicating with one another because they're on different frequencies, if you will. So this is a program that the county has taken on to help that not occur when we have emergency situations. The one, they're looking at Fire Station 108, they're looking at Fire Station 81 to install this monopole. And there will be community outreach before it goes in. I'll probably contact you about somebody coming up here for your next meeting. But I did want to give you a heads up because it was moving along in Santa Clarita, and there's a big outcry because people think it's something other than it is. So it's a communication issue.
So how big is it going to be? Is it going to be the 75-foot one?
It could be. It could be. But at least it's a monopole. It's not the lattice biggie guys. And I had to read this. LA-RICS stands for Los Angeles Regional Interoperable Communications System. That's why they call it LA-RICS, because that's a big mouthful. So wanted you just to be aware of that. It will provide high-speed video and data access that will be dedicated for exclusive use by public safety. So it's not something that we'll use, except will benefit from law enforcement. And
is it going to be at the station?
it's going to be near the station or on the station. And the last thing, although this is really a state issue, I know it impacts this area, and I will give you this press release, Lillian, because I'm not going to read it all, but I think some of you last year had received the fire fee bills that came out through the state.
Right.
They're starting to be mailed down. They're going alphabetically by county. So they're starting with Alameda County and ending with Yuba County, so you can kind of figure out where LA County falls in that. They can try to conclude by June 15th, so I guess you're in the May-June part of the mailing in. I'll just read a few things from this press release. This is from George Runner with the State Board of Equalization. He reaffirmed his support for a pending class action lawsuit as well as full legislative repeal of this bill. In addition, Runner is sponsoring legislation to extend the time that homeowners have to pay and the appeal for fire prevention fee. It's extremely frustrating that a law this wrong continues to take money from the pockets of rural Californians year after year, said Runner. The so-called fee was put in place during a budget crisis that no longer exists, and the legislature could and should repeal it. Of the approximately 10,000 bills that are going to be mailed, there will be an opportunity for you to write to ask for an extension and also to appeal it. So I'm sure Lillian will publish this if she hasn't already.
I did last week.
You did last week?
See if this is anything.
Okay, because there's some websites in here that you can get a hold of if you need more information or to get your paperwork to appeal it. So. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
The yard sale ordinance proposed, is that moving forward or is it dying, I hope?
I haven't heard since we've turned in all of our feedback. I don't think it's been back to board yet. I think it's going to be there at the end of the month.
Okay, is it something that we should still be responding to?
Well, I think you wrote a letter.
The town council.
Yeah, but if you haven't already, yes, you can give your opinion and get it off to our office and we'll make sure it goes into the record because we think it's kind of stupid.
Yes, well, the existing law is there.
Exactly. So we'll need another one.
And can I just add on just to clarify, just to make sure everybody knows, because I know probably everybody in this room knows, but it's commonly misunderstood that that is a state fire fee. It's not LA County fire.
Right.
Yeah, I think they know
And
that.
I know here they do,
Yeah.
but many people in the community don't.
Right.
And LA Ricks, in case somebody out there doesn't know, I know again this room everybody knows, is made up of a multi-agency, huge number of people. So it's not, again, that's not an LA County fire effort per se. We're part of a huge collective group.
Yeah, but we're taking the responsibility to put them up all around the county.
Right, which has been approved by the board.
Correct.
Yeah.
Very hard. Hi, everyone. My name is Durbin, and I'm supervising planner of the ordinance study section at the Department of Regional Planning. Larry Parmio and myself are here to talk about the technical update to Title 22. I should say that first of all, the ordinance study section deals with county-wide issues. Okay? Specifically, we deal with the zoning code, Title 21, Title 22. Okay? And I'm going to let Larry do a brief presentation on the actual project to give you a big picture of what we're trying to do to bring our code up to modern standards. Okay? And what I mean by that is we're just modernizing the format and the look of it, and we're reorganizing chapters. Larry will talk about that, and then I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about how that affects the Agua Dulce CST, which I'm sure is what is on everyone's mind with this project. And just keep in mind that we've been doing this the last 2-3 months now, hitting different communities. We're at ADTC last month, Acton as well. We'll be at Castaic next week, and then I'm doing a lot down in the urban areas this coming month in April. So I'm going to hand it to Larry. I will pass out some handouts to everyone, and then I also have copies of the CSD. Okay, and we've printed out 3 copies. 3 versions each, okay? And I'm going to hand them out to the town council. Anyone who wants these copies, I'm going to hand out my business card. Just send me an email, call me up, and we will email them to you tomorrow, okay? But these 3 copies basically represent the existing code as the CSD looks, today the proposed format for the future, and then the other version is a strike-through version to show you exactly the changes we made. And I think you'll see it's very, very minimal. Okay? So I'll let Larry take it over and I'll hand these out.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Larry Jaramillo. I'm from the Ordinance Studies section of the Department of Regional Planning. As Bruce mentioned, I'm here tonight to give you a brief overview of what the technical update is to the Title 22 zoning code. The technical update is intended to reorganize, clarify, and simplify the existing code. The technical update, though, is not intended to add any new land uses. It will not be adding any new design standards, and it will not be incorporating any policy memos. So basically, it's just a restructuring of the existing code that you have today. Any of the requirements and standards that you have right now will still remain the same within the existing code. In terms of the format, in order to tackle the project, what we did was we broke up the technical of the new Title 22 into 3 separate volumes. Volume 1 will contain the main part of it, which contains the countywide provisions. This will contain things such as definitions, permits, processes, all that information. Now, the goal for Volume 1 was to organize this information and also to simplify the permits and procedures. To give you an idea of what we did, if you refer to the handout which is passed out, on page 3, you'll see an example of both the existing code at the top and the proposed Title 22 at the bottom. On the top portion, the existing code, say you have a use or a type of business that you want to apply for. If you're looking for that specific use, you have to go to one particular zone, go through the code and see if it's there. If it's not, then you can have to page for it and look for another zone to see if it's in that zone. In the bottom portion, in the proposed Title 22, we've listed all the uses on a column on the left-hand side, and at the top you'll notice that we have all the zones listed for that specific. If it's a residential, we'll have all the zones listed up there. And it'll tell you exactly what kind of permit you'll need in order to process it. So once you figure out what type of permit you'll require for that specific use, then you'll turn to page 5, which will be this page here. Each individual permit will have a specific type of review. So right now in the existing code, you'll see the procedure listed out each time that a permit is required. And one of the problems with that is the existing code, the language has minor variations. It still means the same thing, but you might see like a couple of words changed. So to try to standardize it, what we did was we took that procedures out and we put them in one central location. So wherever it would apply, we just make references to it. And in terms of what these type of reviews mean, if you turn back to page 4, you'll see a total of 5 different review types. So everything from a type 1, which is the basic ministerial review. These will be projects that are reviewed at a staff level, all the way up to a type 5 review, which would be like a zone change, a general plan amendment that has to go through both planning commission and the board in order to get approved. So this was all part of volume 1. The next item would be volume 2, which contains your community standards districts. Again, the intent of this new Title 22 is to keep all the requirements. So everything that you have right now in terms of development standards, uses, that's all going to remain unchanged. All we're doing is just restructuring it so that it matches the structure of volume 1, and that everything that's within that code will mean the same thing. And then finally, we have the volume 3, which contains the specific plans. These specific plans include things such as the East Los Angeles First Street specific plan, the Universal Studios specific plan, and the Malibu Coastal plan. Now with these were we took a more hands-off approach and basically just went in and did an exact copy of what's in our existing code now and and inserted that into the new Title 22. The reason we did that is because certain departments, other county departments may make reference to these specific plans. So to not make sure that we didn't affect these other departments, we just put it into the technical update. And to make sure that it still means the same thing, all the requirements, we'll be inserting a table that will provide a reference, so the specific plan is referencing a certain requirement or certain procedure. This is where you'll find it within the technical update. All the requirements that we've been working on, we've been working collaboratively not only with our department but also other county departments. And as we reviewed this project, we had help from staff from various sections, and based on their experience, processing permits, based on helping the customers to what kind of permits they need, we've gotten feedback from them to make sure that all the requirements that we're putting into this project will remain exactly the same as it is today. We started this project roughly 4 years ago, and we've been working through it. We started the public hearing process back in June of last year, presenting to the Regional Planning Commission, just providing them updates with what the project entails and what the status is of the project. And we're anticipating bringing it to them for the final review on April 22nd. So we will have all these copies available online. They have been available since it started with the Regional Planning Commission. They've all been available online. So if you'd like to take a look at it, if you refer to the second page of your handout, there will be a website address here that you can visit, and all of the information in terms of the technical update, all the information will be located on here. And if you have any questions, I'll leave behind some cards and I'll be more than happy to answer them. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Bruce.
Okay, thank you, Larry. So what does this really mean? If anyone's seen Title 22, the zoning code book, it's that gray little book that's about this thick. Okay, it doesn't even fit in its jacket anymore. It's grown to over 1,400 pages since 1974, which was the last time it was updated. There was no CEQA, there was no ADA, there were no CSDs back in 1974. Our code has grown exponentially since then, and we have not done a single technical update. To give you guys a clue, Building and Safety Code is updated every 2 years, right after the state Building and Safety Code is updated. So other departments have created programmatic programs to basically do this. Zoning code, we never have. Planning, we never really got to this because it's very complex, and our code just grew and grew and grew. Right now we have about 6 or 8 chapters for the entire 1,400 pages. None of your CSDs have their own chapter right now. It's one little section, and then everything else is a letter after that. And that's why when we have code violations in your CSDs, the violation section is about this long. It looks like an alphabet soup kind of thing, okay? This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to simplify and reorganize the code. It's as if we threw it up in the air and we started segmenting it logically and comprehensively. We got rid of a ton of repetition. That's what Larry alluded to. Every parking permit, every conditional use permit, every animal permit, all of these things, the procedure is listed out every single time. It's a ton of repetition every time you go to different permits in the book. But over time, that has sort of slipped, and there's been inconsistencies, okay? And so what we decided to do, for instance, conditional use permit, parking permit, oak tree permits, except for that little, the encroachment one, the ministerial permit, all of them follow the same process, which is discretionary, public noticing, and public hearing required, right? That's that big permit. It takes $10,000 and 2 years of public hearing sometimes. The problem is there was each permit had these different rules, but they followed the same process, and it allowed for planners as well as applicants to make mistakes periodically. And it was because of these inconsistencies that we decided, hey, this all follows the same process. Let's refer to it once as the Type 4 procedure, Type 4 review, okay? And so when somebody wants a conditional use permit, they're going to have to go to the Type 4 review, and it's going to be the exact same place, every time. When somebody wants a parking permit, they'll have to go to the Type 4 review, and it's exactly the same procedure. This is going to reduce mistakes. It's going to reduce the complexity of the code, basically. But Larry is correct. The whole point of this project is no new standards, no new policies. We're not incorporating policy memos. If you were restricted to 35 feet before in height, you will be restricted to 35 feet in the future. You needed a 5-set setback, you need it in the future. And if your CSD called for a wider setback, that certainly is going to stay. Now, let's talk about the CSDs for a minute. The whole point of this project is 85% of our time we spent on volume 1, which is countywide provisions. Okay? We just looked at how the code functions and how it works, uses, standards, all that stuff, and just tried to reorganize it. Your community standards districts, they represent something that is unique in the code. Basically, the entire thing is a policy. Okay? They were negotiated with the communities voted on it, the supervisor's office, everybody was involved in those processes. Okay? And trust me, I don't want to change any of that. Okay? In fact, we've worked too long on this project to improve the code to let something like a CSD sort of halt it and stall it. Okay? So the whole point here is just to make the revisions to the CSD so that they function with the new chapter numbers in the code. Okay? So when you look through those versions that we provided to you, you're going to find that the only thing that's really struck through are chapter numbers, code section numbers, and a new one has been put in. Okay? You're not going to see us striking through words or trying to improve a sentence or trying to simplify a provision in your CSD. You won't see any of that. The things you're going to see are new chapter number references, and the other thing is what Larry talked about, 9 standard sections. Okay? We have 28 CSDs currently, and it's going to grow. Okay? All those CSDs, the first one started in 1978, the last one was just 2 or 3 years ago with Stonyville. And essentially, different planners, different periods, different priorities are all reflected in those CSDs. And they don't have any order whatsoever. They sort of have stolen and cheated from each other, but they're all really inconsistent. So let me tell you why that's a problem. Okay? The problem is everybody has a section on modifications. What do you do when your CSD requires this? How do you modify it, right? And it's usually a higher review, some sort of a discretionary review or a CUP, or something like that is how you get a modification. The problem is, the language on that modification, some planners put it here, some planners put it here, some planners put it here, okay? And let me tell you, when somebody calls and asks on the phone, what do I need to do? The planner can't find it in a heartbeat. It's all over the place, okay? So our point of these 9 standard sections is to make everything be in a logical place, but we didn't change a word with respect to that. So that's really, I don't want to take up your whole night in the meeting, but that's really essentially what this project is. This thing started out as something much grander, where we were going to do all of the land use policies in the general plan. Okay? We were going to do a non-conforming chapter. We were going to do new use categories, where we got rid of things like haberdasheries and dress shops, and then just converted to retail, 5,000 feet and under, retail, 10,000 feet, retail up to 20, etc. Okay? That stuff is going to come. My team is going to start working on the non-conforming chapter this summer. Okay? Use categories will be a little bit down the road. But what we really needed to do was fix the code so that it's functional. And that's why we call this the technical update. It's really just updating it so that its functionality works. But there really is no policy shift. Okay. I'll take any questions, but again, I don't want to take a lot of your time. Again, I've given out those 3 versions, but if you want my card, we will email them to you. And we will also publish those when our staff report is due in about 4 more weeks. Okay? Also, I just want to clarify one thing. We did start public hearings in front of the commission last June, and we expect to finish in front of the commission on April 22nd. However, just like Larry said, this is a type 5 process because what we're really presenting is a new ordinance, and ordinances must be adopted by the board as well. So even after April 22nd, there will be another opportunity, but I got to tell you, with the new board, I want to get this done earlier rather than later in the summer. So we'll probably be doing this in mid-June, late June at the latest. Keeping in mind that even when the board hears it, there's still another hearing that must happen, and then county council must review it between those periods. So there's still a lot of work to do, and I'm expecting that this project probably won't be approved until at least mid to late summer, and it's more likely going to be the fall. Okay? So there's still time to give all kinds of feedback, but your feedback is highly desired before we get to convention. Now, the last thing I want to say is, your CSD here was just revised, correct? You guys just went through that. You waited an awful long time for that, I know, okay? I have no interest in changing the word due to that, because I know you guys already did all that work. So essentially, this is just to fix it, okay? It's really, I've been calling it a housekeeping job. You know, it's a big housekeeping job with a lot of cobwebs, but essentially that's what we're doing here.
Approximately how many pages have you been able to eliminate in this?
I'm sorry?
How many pages have you been able to eliminate this?
I don't know what our page count is now, but I'm pretty sure we're down to at least 700 or 800. You have to understand, we reduced so much repetition. This table alone, okay, this first page of your handout, or the second page of your handout, this represents so much repetition. If you guys have ever been in the code, what you'll know is you get to residential zones, and it says R1, okay? And it's got pages and pages of the same lists, okay? The problem with it, though, is 3 pages down, you don't know whether you're in permitted uses, or subject to CUP, or subject to director's review, right? And then you've got to go back and go, wait, where am I in the, oh, I'm not even in the right zone, I got to be up at R3, or whatever it is, okay? I've got pages this thick just in the C zones, okay? And it's just uses, okay? Now, what you're going to have, it's in Division 3, that's our uses, and every zone category, residential, will have its own chart, okay? But it's all the residentials going across, R1 through R4, okay? And the uses will only be listed once, but all the zones are here, and you don't have to go back and see whether you're under director's review or subject to CUP. You see it all right here in one shot, okay? That reduced so much repetition in pages alone. And it's made it much more user-friendly. I think the other thing you'll find is, this isn't rocket science and it's not super forward, okay? There's nothing in here about form-based codes or anything like that. This is really just, you'll see a lot of codes with this format now, at least people who have cleaned theirs up. Santa Clarita's looks almost exactly to this. I think they used the same consultant. Okay? We had an initial consultant come through and give us what they thought we should do, and then we're like, no, that's not going to work. We have to do our own thing. And that's what we spent the last 3.5 years on. Okay? So essentially, that's pretty much the project. It affects countywide, but I have to tell you, we've had a lot of positive feedback from our staff, number one. The staff is really hungry for this because it's such a frustrating thing to work with our code. First day on my job, I was just lost, I have to tell you. And it took years of working in enforcement out here in Agua, Dulce, trying to get familiar with it. But we do think that this is the way forward. And this is the other thing is, you know, we couldn't do a lot of the stuff that we wanted to do in terms of the policy stuff, like the policy stuff that's coming down the line. We know renewable energy is here, non-conforming will be here, There'll be some other things coming, like urban agriculture and some other things that possibly come down the line. And the problem is it's really hard to work with our code in its current format, okay? So it was hard to do and manage all this new stuff coming down the line when we have such an old format to work with. It was like, it was like putting new spark plugs in an old vehicle, and you're just not sure how long that's going to take you. So that's basically what we're doing here. We're going to be up at the commission on the 22nd. Like I said, I'm going to Castaic next week. I do have a few copies of the Acton CSD. I was there last month talking to their land use committee. And if you want to see Actons, just so you can do a comparison to see how the CSDs are treated, you're going to find that they have the exact same treatment. Okay? I'm calling it TU treatment, and the CSDs, it's really just TU treatment. All 28 are getting it.
As far as on a typical situation where someone applies for a conditional use permit or any kind of permit, where is it triggered that they're within the Agua, say CSD, for example? In other words, where does the red flag go up to where there's different conditions put upon those that are in the CSD?
Well, yeah. The first thing is your boundary map. And that tells us whether the property or the parcel is in the CSD or not, okay? And you'll see that's one thing we changed. You already had a modern map because you just had yours revised, so you had a GIS map already. We didn't do anything to it. But a lot of the CSDs, if you look at them, they're line drawn maps. They're old cartographer maps, and those have been photocopied so many times.
Just talk about what the proposed changes are.
Okay, let's discuss that, and then we'll hold anything additional until she arrives. Let's do that. Mary?
Right. The purpose of this, because we've been working on this for a number of years, we just started physically working on it for the last 3 months, is to eliminate the need for an election when there are unopposed candidates. It only makes sense. If there are 3 openings and you've got 3 people running, there's no reason to have an election because it's not going to change the outcome of what's going to happen.
Right.
If you've got 3 openings and 2 people running, there's no reason to have an election because those 2 people should be seated and then a special election to fill the vacancy later on.
Right.
So that was the purpose of putting this together. And there's really only a few changes that we made in the bylaws. And one is in Article 7, number 8, which says, special elections shall be held in the event there are insufficient candidates to fill council vacancies. Current council members shall remain seated until the special election is or are concluded. We want to eliminate the current council members shall remain seated until the special election is or included because we can't really force someone to continue on after their term is done.
That's right.
So that was the first one.
Okay.
And then the rest are in the election procedures. Let's go to
Page 11.
candidates versus number of seats on page 11. Number 1, 2, and 3, I'll go ahead and read those because that
It's already existing.
yeah. The 3 council members shall be elected in even years. 4 council members shall be elected in odd years. There shall be no maximum number of candidates allowed to run. The available council seats shall be filled in the order of the highest vote count in the election. We've added a number 4 that says, if the write-in candidate deadline is passed and there are no eligible verified write-in candidates and eligible verified candidates are unopposed, or there is less than a full slate of candidates, those eligible verified candidates shall be elected by acclamation and an election shall not be held. A special election will be held to fill vacancies created by a lack of a full slate of candidates. So, what that means, write-in candidate deadline is 10 days before the election. If we get to that point and there are 4 vacancies, 4 candidates, and there's no write-in candidates, the candidates will be elected by acclamation, and there's no election that needs to be done. If there are write-in candidates, there will be an election, because that indicates that there's more people running than there are seats available. If there are 3 candidates for 4 openings, the 3 candidates will be elected by acclamation and will take office in December. In December, there's a vacancy that's created because there's one open seat. So at that point, the town council says to the election committee, have a special election to fill the vacancy. That's really all that we're changing.
Can I ask one question? If you change that, the bylaws part of it, the charter says you have to have an election. Do you in turn have to change the charter as well? Because that was the big issue, and we brought Dave in, and Dave went through everything, and he said, you can change the bylaws all you want. Changing the charter is another thing, and because it says
and where
election,
does it say, what are you saying?
it says elected officials under the charter.
I'd like to address what you were just talking about.
Can I just read this? Can I just read this?
Okay.
Let's have her finish.
Okay.
The town council shall consist of 7 members elected by the registered voters of Agua, Dulce. Town council bylaws shall set forth how vacancies will be filled. And then there's other parts of the bylaws that say elected members shall be seated. I mean, it's a lot more than just one thing. And I remember Dave McCord, who put this all together, basically, he was on the committee, saying that the bylaws can be changed, but because the charter says they have to be elected, it's not going to do you any good. And changing the charter is a bigger task than just changing the bylaws. So
we understand that changing the charter is a bigger task than changing the bylaws. What we're doing is we're not circumventing, we're not trying to pull something fast. What we're trying to do,
I don't think I said that.
but for the rest of the,
I'm questioning because Dave had brought this up last year.
I invited Dave to the meeting. I've talked to Dave about it. He said if it was important to him, he would be here at the meeting. So.
I would just like to tell you that this was important enough to the election committee that we held a special meeting on Saturday, and there were 4 or 5 of us that spent 2.5 hours talking about this. And so I would like to not just pass it on. Lorna is on her way, but she said, would I read it to you, and then I will give you a copy of it. The Agua Dulce Town Council Election Committee would like to state our objection to the proposed changes to the bylaws by electing of council members by acclamation instead of a ballot election. The majority of the election committee members believe the proposed changes would be detrimental to the democratic process of and the town council itself. In addition, we feel it will only serve to make the community feel less connected with the Agua Dulce Town Council. Logistically, there are problems with having an election by acclamation in lieu of the balloted election. To adopt this only saves a portion of the work that goes into an election. It would possibly result in multiple special elections in a row. As if you have any candidate eligible for a spot 10 days before an election, we must seat them. then hold another election to fill any remaining seats. So, for example, the worst case scenario, if we had 4 open seats, we could have 4 almost elections. A lot of work for everyone. This takes what is clearly supposed to be something that the election committee has a domain over and makes a decision, now go to the council. No balloted voting takes the election process further from the community. The real issue at hand is garnering more interest in participation from the community. This only puts a Band-Aid on a small scale. The election committee welcomes a joint endeavor with the town council to come up with some ideas to make this happen. In summary, we think the proposal for election by acclamation may follow the letter of the law, as our charter does not state election by ballot. It does not fill the spirit, but it does not fill the spirit. We think time and energy would be better spent trying to include the community more. In regard to striking the following line: 1, the special election shall be held in the event that there are insufficient candidates to fill the council vacancies. Current council members shall remain seated until the special election is or are concluded. This could cause a problem in certain situations. For example, if the members are not required to remain seated, then they must vacate the post upon completion of their term. So if we have 4 outstanding council members that do not want to run again, then no one wants to run for the town council. We start a new year with 3 council members until we are able to hold a special election and find a candidate. I know it is not very likely that this should happen, but leaving such a possibility open for someone to not have to make 1 or 2 meetings that they could probably be excused from. The election committee has made 1 or 2 meetings that the election committee has not had complaints a few times. Members had to stay an extra 2 months. Changing bylaws for such small issues without trying other options first seems hasty and not well thought. And I'm sorry, I know you said you really thought this out, but this is what we felt as a committee. And it's not that we are trying to put something, make it difficult for anybody, but this committee works hard. And
So Mary, are you saying that the charter doesn't have to be changed? Are you saying the charter doesn't have?
I want to answer this letter here.
I'm going to give you a copy of it. And Lorna should be here in the next 5 minutes, I hope.
I think all of our intent was actually to make the election committee's job easier and simpler and more straightforward. If there's 3 people running for 3 vacant seats, what's the purpose of the election?
It's not going to change the outcome.
It's not going to change the outcome. So, there was nothing trying to step on anybody's toes. It was simply to just something that's effectively going to happen that day. It's not going to affect the outcome of it. I think was the whole concern.
Yeah.
So, if it sounds to me like the election committee is a little bit offended, and here we were looking at it where it would make it easier on the election committee. So
We don't feel that that's the case.
okay, well then I think we need to have
I
it.
think that we feel that we really want to make this town council not an acting town council. We want our people elected, have good candidates. We want the people in town to know that this is a very honored job. because that's the way we feel it is.
Right.
And we want people to know that they ought to come out and see the town council and maybe decide on their own that they would like to run. But if we're just going to have it by acclamation, I could come up, I could say, well, I'll take a seat. Well, you know darn well that's not going to be a good thing. But
May I say something on my part, please?
I think it'd be an excellent thing.
Can I say something, Don, very
Hang on a second.
Okay.
Let's do the order.
Okay.
Mary has a comment. Please, comments.
The process is there. Nobody's going to be appointed, nobody's going to be declared a winner unless you go through the right, where you fill out your application, it gets verified by the election committee. All we're doing is, if the election itself would have no change in the outcome, not to have the election. That's really all we're trying to do.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm concerned only because David brought this up, that the charter says that they have to be elected.
And they are elected by acclamation because there is no opposition.
Okay.
Rosie,
Well,
Rosie has something she
Okay, I would like
wants
to
to
say something that there were 4 of us at the meeting. This was a
yeah, I wasn't there by choice.
You were not there. You were not there. It was Judy, Laura, I should say first because she's like Judy, myself, and Florcy, the Dr. Florcy. Okay? And I agree with what you guys are saying. That was the direction I was going, and that was what I was bringing up as we were at the meeting. I did not support what we are saying here today. And I want you to know that because my position is that I feel that we should not have this election that is actually you are elected. Same thing what you guys are saying. So I would like to tell you that I abstained from that vote at that meeting, and I sent it again in an email to Lorna this morning, copy everybody, and I agree with you guys. I am in that position that we should not have this extra work and money spent. Extra work from morning until 8 until 9. I know we're there, Judy, and I don't know where Danette is. I know we're there, but some people cannot make it. Some of us are there maybe 8 hours here just to vote for the people. They come and you guys can write your own name, vote for yourself. You can get out of here and you're voted. I mean, that was my position. And acclamation, I know what acclamation means, and the way I understand is a little different than what the meeting, and I could bring that up.
We've only found 4 different
Well, yeah.
descriptions of it.
Yeah, acclamation means that there's no opposition, you're voted.
I guess.
And I'm done, and thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that my position